When Lena Morales, a hard-working bartender in Manhattan, spots her late father's face in the office portrait of billionaire hotel owner Preston Vale, her world turns upside down. That single photograph unlocks a buried history, a forgotten genius, a stolen invention, and a fire that was never an accident. As Lena digs deeper, with the help of quiet tech investigator Derek Wu, she uncovers a decades-old conspiracy that powerful men risked everything to keep hidden. But the truth has a heartbeat, and Lena is about to find out her father, Javier Morales, never really died, and neither did his dream of lighting the world with clean, limitless energy. This is the story of a daughter's fight to finish what her father started, and the storm she becomes in the process. If this story moved you even a little, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more powerful true story content, and share this video with someone who believes the truth always finds its way. Lena Morales wiped down the marble bar at the Ivory Lounge, the rooftop restaurant of the Park Avenue Grand Hotel in Manhattan. It was the kind of place where people spent $100 on cocktails just to take selfies with the skyline. The city lights outside sparkled like stars, but inside, Lena felt invisible. That was normal. She'd worked here for 3 years, long enough to know people didn't see bartenders. They saw drinks, tips, and their own reflections in the glass. Lena didn't mind. The job paid well, especially with the late shifts, and the tips helped cover her mom's medication back in Queens. Her mom, Carmen, was sick and on oxygen. Her dad, Javier Morales, had died when she was 4, in a factory fire no one liked to talk about. All Lena had were old pictures and a few bedtime stories. The world moved on. She did too. Or at least, she tried to. It was a Thursday night, slow and quiet near midnight. Lena was restocking bottles when her manager Tony poked his head in. He was in his 50s, always chewing gum, always checking his watch. "Hey Morales," he said, half whispering like it was a secret. "Can you help clean the VIP office upstairs? Housekeeping's late again, and Mr. Vale's got guests early tomorrow." Lena raised an eyebrow. "The top floor? The private office?" He nodded. "Yeah, don't touch anything. Just dust and wipe the glass. Quick in and out. You good?" She sighed, pulled her ponytail tight, and grabbed a towel. "Yeah, I got it." She didn't want to go up there. Nobody really did. That floor was reserved for Preston Vale, the hotel's owner. He was rich, quiet, always serious. Lena had served him once. Neat bourbon, no ice, no smile. She didn't think he even remembered her name. The private elevator whooshed open with a soft ding, and Lena stepped onto the 47th floor. The hallway was silent, wrapped in deep red carpet and lined with gold-framed paintings that probably cost more than her college tuition. She used the staff keycard Tony gave her and entered the office. Inside, everything smelled expensive, like wood polish, cologne, and leather furniture. The space had floor-to-ceiling windows, a fireplace, and a long glass desk that reflected the city lights behind her. She moved slowly, almost afraid to touch anything. The silence was heavy, like the room itself was holding its breath. She sprayed the cleaner on the desk and started wiping in long, careful strokes. Then she turned toward the far wall to dust the frame above the fireplace, and froze. There, hanging neatly in a silver frame, was a photograph. Large. Black and white. 2 men shaking hands in front of what looked like a lab. One of the men was Preston Vale, clean-shaven younger, but still with that same stiff posture and serious face. She knew it was him immediately, but it was the man beside him that made her chest tighten and her knees weaken. The second man had kind eyes, a warm smile, and dark curly hair that stuck up slightly at the crown, like her own used to as a kid. He looked like the photos her mom kept in the shoebox under her bed. He looked like the man from the stories, the one who made her wooden toys by hand, who carried her on his shoulders, who died when she was 4. She stepped closer, her breath caught in her throat. Her hand trembled as she reached toward the glass frame. It couldn't be. It couldn't be. But it was. It was him. Her father. Javier Morales. Standing next to Preston Vale, smiling like they were best friends. The cloth dropped from her hand and hit the floor. Her stomach twisted. She backed away from the wall, bumping into the desk behind her. Her mind spun in 100 directions. How? Why? When? Her dad had never worked in a hotel. He was a factory engineer, a mechanic. That's what she'd been told her whole life. Why was his photo on the wall of a millionaire's office? Why was he standing next to the most powerful man in the building? She didn't have time to answer. The office door creaked open behind her. She turned fast, still shaking. Standing in the doorway, tall and calm in a black suit, was Preston Vale himself. Behind him, two men in gray business suits looked confused mid-conversation. Preston's eyes scanned the room, then landed on Lena. His gaze drifted past her and stopped on the photo. Then it came back to her face. He said nothing. Lena didn't plan to speak. It just came out. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Sir, why is my father in your office portrait?" The room fell into silence, thick and heavy. One of the businessmen raised his eyebrows. The other froze mid-step. Preston Vale's face changed, not with confusion, but something stranger. Fear? Recognition? Color drained from his cheeks like a glass of milk spilled across marble. He blinked once, slowly. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "What did you say?" Lena took a step forward. "That man. Next to you. That's my father. Javier Morales." Her voice cracked halfway through. Preston opened his mouth, but no words came out. The other men looked at each other nervously. One muttered, "We'll wait downstairs." They left without another word. Vale stepped into the room slowly and closed the door behind him. He looked at the photo again, then back at Lena. "You shouldn't be in here," he said quietly. "I was told to clean," she replied. "I didn't mean to intrude." Her voice was shaky now. "But that photo. I know who that is." Preston Vale walked past her without responding. He stood beneath the photo, looking up at it like he hadn't seen it in years. Then he turned, and for a moment, Lena thought he was going to cry. Instead, he swallowed hard. "Where did you hear that name?" he asked. "Javier Morales." She stared at him, confused. "He's my dad. He died when I was 4. In a fire. At a steel factory in Brooklyn." Preston's face twitched. "I see," he said. But he didn't explain. Didn't deny it either. Lena waited, heart pounding. "What was he to you?" she asked. He didn't answer. "Why do you have a photo with him in your office?" she demanded. His silence said everything. He knew. And he was hiding something. Something big. Preston finally stepped back from the photo. "This isn't the time or place," he said stiffly. "If you have questions, come to my office tomorrow at noon. Alone." He didn't raise his voice, but there was something in his tone that made Lena feel both invited and warned. She nodded slowly. He walked past her, opened the door, and paused. "Please don't discuss what you saw tonight with anyone," he said. "It will only bring confusion." Then he was gone. Lena stood alone in the quiet office, her hands still shaking. The man she believed was long dead was alive in a photograph with a billionaire. Nothing made sense anymore. She grabbed her cleaning towel and left the room, her heart still pounding. The elevator ride down felt like hours. She didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her father's face, not in memory, but in a frame in an office above a fireplace. The next morning, Lena sat at the small kitchen table in her Queens apartment. The place was small, cluttered with old medicine bottles and folded laundry. Her mom, Carmen, sat on the couch with her oxygen tube in and the morning news playing softly on TV. Lena stared at a childhood photo on the fridge, her and her dad at Coney Island, him lifting her into the air, both of them laughing. "Mom," she said quietly, "can I ask you something?" Carmen turned, adjusting her oxygen mask. "Of course, baby." "Did Dad ever know someone named Preston Vale?" Her mom's face froze. The color drained from her cheeks. She looked away. "Where did you hear that name?" Lena hesitated. "I saw a photo. In his office. Of them together." Carmen's lips trembled. He told me to never talk about it, she whispered. He made me promise. Lena's stomach turned. Who did? Her mother closed her eyes. Preston. Lena didn't speak for a long time. She went to her room and pulled out the old shoebox from under her bed. It held every piece of her father that she had left, his broken watch, a receipt from the mechanic shop he used to work at, and a sealed envelope she'd never opened. The handwriting on the front read, "For Lena, if I'm gone." Her hands trembled as she lifted the envelope. She opened it slowly. Inside was a letter, written in her father's rough handwriting. The first line read, "If you're reading this, then something went wrong." Her eyes blurred with tears. She sat down and kept reading. "They're going to say it was a fire, but it won't be an accident. If Preston Vale is still alive, he knows everything. I trusted the wrong people. I just hope someday you'll find out the truth." Lena clutched the paper to her chest. The truth had just begun. Lena sat on the edge of her bed, the letter still clutched in her hands. Her father's words kept repeating in her head, "It won't be an accident. If Preston Vale is still alive, he knows everything." The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of her mother's oxygen machine in the living room. Lena had so many questions, but no answers. Why had her mother never told her the truth? What was Preston hiding? Why was her father in that photo with a billionaire who now acted like he didn't exist? She stared at the clock. It was almost noon. Her heart raced as she remembered Vale's words from last night. "If you have questions, come to my office at noon. Alone." She didn't know if she was ready, but something inside her said she had to go. If her father had risked everything to leave that letter, she owed it to him to find out the truth. She slipped on her black jacket and jeans, stuffed the letter into her backpack, and left the apartment. Her mother was half asleep on the couch. Lena didn't say where she was going. She wasn't ready for another round of secrets and silence. The subway ride back to Manhattan felt longer than usual. Her legs bounced with nerves the whole way. By the time she stepped into the Park Avenue Grand Hotel lobby, her palms were sweaty. She walked past the gold elevators, past the polished floors, and straight to the reception desk. The clerk gave her a nervous look when she said she was here to see Mr. Vale. A few quiet calls were made. Then a young assistant in a navy suit led her to the elevator. "Mr. Vale is waiting upstairs," the assistant said, pressing the button for the 47th floor. Lena stayed quiet. As the elevator rose, her stomach twisted with every floor it passed. When the doors opened, the hallway was just as quiet and golden as before. The assistant led her to the office and knocked once before opening the door. "She's here," he said. Preston Vale stood by the tall windows, hands in his pockets, staring out at the city below. He turned slowly when she stepped inside. The assistant closed the door behind her, and now they were alone. "Thank you for coming," Vale said. His voice was calm, but his eyes looked tired, like he hadn't slept. Lena didn't sit. She dropped her backpack near the chair and looked him straight in the eye. "Why was my dad in that photo?" she asked. "You know his name. You recognized it last night. I want answers." Vale nodded slowly. He walked over to the fireplace, stood beneath the photo, and stared at it for a long time before speaking. "Your father and I, we used to be partners. A long time ago." Lena's heart thudded. "Partners? In what?" she asked, confused. "He worked in a steel factory. That's what I was told." Vale shook his head. "Your father was an engineer," he said. "One of the best I've ever met. We started a company together when we were both just getting started. Small lab, barely any money. We called it Nova West Labs." Lena blinked. That name sounded familiar. She remembered seeing it on the old toolbox her mom kept in the closet. "What did you build?" she asked. Preston looked away for a moment, like he was picking his words carefully. "Clean energy," he said. "A machine that could produce energy without fuel. Your father called it Project Solis. It was his design. He dreamed of making energy free for everyone. I helped him get funding. We worked day and night on it." Lena felt like the floor had shifted. None of this matched the story she grew up with. But if all that is true, Lena asked, why did I grow up thinking my dad died working in a factory? Why did no one ever say he worked with you? Preston walked to his desk and sat down slowly. His hands shook slightly as he poured a glass of water. Because things went bad, he said. There were arguments. Pressure from investors. Your dad wanted to release the project publicly. No patents, no profit. Just give it away. I didn't agree. We had people counting on us. Big names, serious money. And when Javier started talking about whistleblowing, things got dangerous. He paused. The night of the fire, he had planned to go to the press. I begged him not to. We fought. That was the last time I saw him. Lena felt her eyes sting. So the fire wasn't an accident? She asked. Preston looked down. I honestly don't know. But I've asked myself that question every day since. The room went quiet again. Lena stared at the photo above the fireplace. He died, she said softly. I was 4. My mom raised me alone. She told me he worked in a plant. She never said anything about this. Vale nodded. I asked her to stay silent, he admitted. After the fire, there was an investigation. Investors wanted to distance themselves. I paid her a large settlement to stay quiet. I told her it was for your safety. Lena felt like someone had punched her in the chest. So you bought her silence, she said coldly. You gave her money to erase my dad's name. Vale stood up again, walking toward her slowly. I know how it sounds, he said. But things were complicated. Dangerous. Your father had powerful enemies, Lena. If they knew he was trying to leak those files, they might have come after him. Or you. He paused. They might still come after you if you go digging. Lena took a step back, her head spinning. You said you didn't know if the fire was an accident, she said. But what if it wasn't? What if someone started it to stop him? Preston didn't answer right away. He walked to the window and looked out at the city. After the fire, there were rumors. That he survived. That he ran. But no body was ever found. I assumed he died. We all did. If he's alive, he stopped and turned. Do you think he's alive? Lena didn't answer. She thought about the letter in her bag. She thought about the final line, if Preston Vale is still alive, he knows everything. Maybe her father was alive. Maybe he had been hiding. But she wasn't ready to tell Preston that. Not yet. I don't know, she lied. I'm just trying to understand why my whole life has been a lie. Preston looked at her with something close to sadness. I never meant to hurt you, he said. Your father was a good man. Brilliant. But he crossed people who don't forgive easily. Lena narrowed her eyes. Who? She asked. Who are these people? Preston stayed silent. Then he finally said, powerful investors. People who buried things deeper than I could dig up. After the fire, they made it clear, move on or get buried with him. Lena's voice rose. So you moved on. Built a hotel empire. Put up a photo to remember the man you helped erase. He didn't argue. That photo has been in this room for 20 years, he said. I see it every day. I didn't forget him. I just tried to survive. Lena stepped toward the door. She couldn't breathe in that room anymore. I'm going to find out what really happened, she said. With or without your help. Preston watched her. Then be careful, he said. The truth cost your father everything. Back in the elevator, Lena felt like her world had cracked open. Everything she believed, about her dad, her childhood, even her mom, was suddenly filled with holes. Her hands shook as she clutched the strap of her backpack. That night, she took the long subway ride back to Queens in silence. When she got home, her mother was sitting in her favorite chair, pretending to read a magazine but really just staring at the wall. Lena didn't say anything at first. She sat across from her. Finally, she asked, how much did he pay you? Her mom looked up, startled. Lena, How much did he pay you to stay quiet about Dad? Carmen's hands trembled. She took a shaky breath. I didn't do it for the money, she whispered. I did it for you. Lena felt her heart harden. I didn't need your protection, she said. I needed the truth. Carmen wiped her eyes but didn't reply. Lena got up and went to her room, shutting the door quietly behind her. She opened her backpack and pulled out the letter again. This time, she read it slowly, word by word. Her father had tried to warn her, about Preston, about the danger, about what Project Solis could have meant for the world. She now knew that Preston Vale had lied to everyone. He'd told investors the fire was an accident. He told her mom it was better to stay quiet. And yet he kept that photo on his wall like a trophy or a ghost. Lena didn't know who the real enemy was yet, Preston or the people above him he refused to name. But one thing was clear, someone tried to bury the truth. And now it was up to her to dig it up. She folded the letter carefully and whispered to the empty room, Don't worry, Dad. I'm not stopping now. Lena didn't sleep that night. Her father's letter was still on her desk, folded neatly beside a cup of cold tea. She kept hearing Preston Vale's voice in her head, talking about the past, the fire, and the company he once shared with her father. She had always believed her dad was just a regular mechanic. But now, everything pointed to something much bigger, a hidden company, a secret invention, and people powerful enough to erase the truth. Lena knew she couldn't rely on Preston anymore. He told her part of the truth, but he was still hiding things. Her mom had been silent for years. Now Lena had no choice but to start her own investigation. She grabbed her coat, stuffed the letter into her bag again, and decided she was going to find out exactly what Nova West Labs was and why her father's name had disappeared from the world like he never existed. Lena's first stop was the Queen's Public Library. It was quiet and mostly empty that morning, the kind of place where secrets seemed to live between the shelves. She found a computer in the back corner and started searching for Nova West Labs. At first, nothing came up. But when she added New York and 2000s, an old article from the Brooklyn Sun-Times appeared. The headline read, Explosion at Tech Lab Raises Safety Questions. The story was short, but it named the lab and its co-founders, Preston Vale and Javier Morales. Lena's heart thudded in her chest. There it was. Her father's name in print, tied to the very company Vale had mentioned. The article said the fire was under investigation, but no charges were filed. It also mentioned a strange detail. The building's sprinkler system had been disabled before the fire started. Lena leaned back in her chair, heart pounding. Someone wanted that place to burn. She kept digging. The article mentioned Nova West's address, an old warehouse near the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Lena scribbled it down in her notebook. Then she noticed something odd. The article quoted a source named D. Shaw, listed as a junior engineer at the time. She had no idea who that was, but it felt important. She took out her phone and searched D. Shaw, Nova West Labs. After a few clicks, she found a blog called Watchdog Truths, run by a man named Derek Shaw, an investigative blogger known for digging into corporate scandals. His photo showed a man in his 30s with glasses and a short beard, smiling awkwardly in front of a messy office. He hadn't posted in a while, but his bio said he lived in Brooklyn. Lena knew it was a long shot, but she sent him a message. My name is Lena. My father worked at Nova West. I need your help. She hit send and waited. While she waited for a reply, Lena decided to check out the old lab site. It was late afternoon by the time she got there. The warehouse was fenced off and partly covered in graffiti. A for sale sign hung crookedly on the gate, rusted and faded. She peered through the chain-link fence and saw broken windows and crumbled bricks. Whatever was left of Nova West was long gone. Still, she walked the perimeter, looking for clues. Near the side alley, she spotted something. An old rusted sign that had once read Authorized Personnel Only, Nova West Labs. She stared at it, her fingers tracing the letters through the fence. This place had been important. Something had happened here, something worth hiding. As she turned to leave, her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. She picked up quickly. Lena, a deep voice asked. This is Derek Shaw. I got your message. She stepped away from the street. Yes, she said. I need answers. They met at a small coffee shop in Williamsburg that evening. Derek looked just like his photo, except a little more tired. He had a folder in one hand and a cautious look in his eyes. When I saw your name, he said, sitting across from her, I couldn't believe it. Javier Morales disappeared the night of that fire. People assumed he died, but some of us always thought it wasn't an accident. Lena showed him the letter. Derek read it twice, slowly. This is big, he said. Really big. If what your dad wrote is true, it wasn't just a lab fire. It was a cover-up. He opened his folder and pulled out old blueprints labeled Project Solis and photos of machines that looked like small engines. Your dad was designing a clean energy device, Derek explained. I saw it once. It ran without gas or wires. Completely self-sustaining. If it had worked, it would have changed everything. Lena leaned in, eyes wide. And my dad built that? She asked. Derek nodded. He was the heart of it. Preston was the money guy. He brought in investors, promised profits. But your dad wanted it to be public. Free. No patents. That scared a lot of people, big oil, energy companies, even government contractors. When Javier said he'd go public, someone decided he had to be stopped. Lena felt her hands go cold. Are you saying they killed him? Derek shook his head slowly. I don't know. I thought he died. But if this letter is real, maybe he got away. Lena pulled out her phone and showed him the photo from Vale's office. That's them, she said. My dad and Preston. Derek stared at the image. I haven't seen that photo in over 20 years, he said softly. Your dad was right. The truth didn't just disappear. It was buried. Lena looked him in the eye. Then let's dig it up. They agreed to work together. Derek had more files at his apartment, including emails from Nova West's investors and notes from old whistleblower forums. Lena promised to come by the next day. That night, as she rode the subway back home, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. Every time she looked up, she caught eyes darting away. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was just her nerves. But when she got off at her stop and turned the corner toward her apartment, she saw a black sedan parked across the street. Its engine was running, but the headlights were off. She froze. The windows were tinted. She waited. After a full minute, the car slowly pulled away. She watched it disappear down the block before hurrying upstairs. She locked the door behind her and checked the windows twice. Whoever they weren't just watching her. They wanted her to know it. Lena barely slept. She woke up early and packed a small bag, just in case she had to leave quickly. Then she made copies of her dad's letter and hid them in different places around the apartment. Her mom noticed her pacing. Lena, is everything okay? She asked, coughing lightly. Lena hesitated, then said, Did Dad ever say anything about Project Solis? Carmen looked up in shock. Her lips trembled. That was his dream, she whispered. He used to say it would light up the world. Did you know about Nova West? Lena asked. About Vale. Carmen nodded slowly. They were friends at first. Then it all changed. After the fire, Preston came here. He offered money. Said we'd be safe if we stayed quiet. I thought your dad was dead. I was scared, Lena. I didn't know what else to do. Lena hugged her tightly. I get it, Mom. But it's time people knew who he really was. Later that afternoon, Lena met Derek at his apartment near Prospect Park. The place was small and messy, with stacks of papers everywhere. He cleared space on the table and showed her a collection of printed emails from 20 years ago. One name stood out, Gene Curtis, listed as one of the top investors in Nova West. Curtis runs a private energy firm now, Derek said. If anyone knows the truth, it's him. Lena leaned closer. Can we talk to him? Derek sighed. Maybe. But he's not the kind of man who gives interviews. If we push too hard, we might scare him, or worse. Lena looked at one of the emails. It had her dad's name in the subject line, "Concerns about Morales, potential leak." That was dated 1 week before the fire. She looked at Derek. They were already watching him. Derek nodded. Your dad was trying to do the right thing, and they wanted to stop him. That evening, they built a timeline. Lena helped organize every file, email, and news clip onto a board in Derek's apartment. Red string connected events, photos, and names like pieces of a puzzle. The picture that formed was dark but clear. Project Solis had been real, her father had been targeted, and Preston Vale had played a much bigger role than he admitted. Lena stood back and looked at the board. This can't just be some internet blog post, she said. It needs to reach the world. Derek nodded. If we get enough proof, we go public. But we have to be careful. These people don't play fair. Lena thought again of the black sedan, the fire, the lies. She touched her dad's photo in the corner of the board. They tried to erase him, she said. But he left a trail. And I'm going to follow it, no matter where it leads. The corkboard in Derek's apartment was now covered in paper. There were pictures of the Nova West building, maps of the area, emails, and even hand-sketched blueprints. In the center was a photo of Lena's dad, smiling with grease on his hands and a tool belt around his waist. Lena stood quietly, staring at it. We need to go back to the beginning, she said. Not just who wanted the project, but what happened the night it burned. Derek nodded. I have someone who might help. A retired fireman. He was there when Nova West caught fire. I met him years ago when I started looking into this. Lena grabbed her jacket. Let's go. The next morning, they drove to a quiet neighborhood in Long Island. The man they were meeting lived in a small house near the beach. His name was George Salas, and his voice was rough like sandpaper, but his memory was sharp. George let them in and poured black coffee into chipped mugs. His living room was filled with old firefighter medals and newspaper clippings from past rescues. Nova West, he said, frowning. That was one of the strangest calls I ever answered. He leaned back in his chair and looked at Lena. You said your father was Javier Morales? Lena nodded. Yes, sir. George ran a hand down his face. I remember his name. We found a wallet near the break room. Burned, but readable. But we never found a body. There was smoke everywhere, and the place was falling apart. But something about it felt off. Lena leaned forward. Off how? George's eyes narrowed. The fire alarms didn't work. Sprinklers never came on. And when we checked later, someone had disabled the main panel. That doesn't happen by accident. Derek looked over at Lena. George continued. Someone wanted that building to burn, and they didn't want anyone to stop it. George stood and grabbed an old folder from his bookshelf. Inside were yellowed reports and faded photos of the Nova West fire. He handed one to Lena. It showed a blurry figure being pulled out of the building by 2 firefighters. We never identified this guy, George said. He was hurt bad. Burned. We put him in an ambulance, but the records say he vanished from the hospital before sunrise. No discharge, no paperwork, just gone. Lena's hands trembled as she stared at the photo. She couldn't see the face clearly, but her gut told her it was him. Her father. What if he didn't die? She whispered. George looked at her carefully. Then someone wanted the world to think he did. You don't disappear like that unless you're running from something. Or someone. Lena placed the photo back in the folder and stood. Thank you, she said. You just helped me believe something I already felt in my heart. On the drive back, Lena stared out the window in silence. Her father had escaped the fire. But why disappear? Why leave his family behind? Derek glanced over at her. There's one more person we should talk to, he said. Name's Reggie. He used to work with your dad at Nova West. A mechanic, like him. He vanished after the fire, but I found a number last year. He runs a small auto shop in Red Hook now. Not many people know he's still around. Lena sat up straighter. Let's go. That afternoon, they pulled up to Reggie's Auto Repairs, a corner garage with peeling paint and a sagging roof. Inside, an older man with a grease-stained shirt and thick beard stood over a beat-up pickup truck. He looked up when they entered. "You Derek?" he asked. Derek nodded. Reggie's eyes shifted to Lena. "You must be his daughter." Lena was surprised. "You knew who I was." He nodded. "You've got his eyes." Reggie led them to a small office in the back of the garage. The walls were covered in car posters, and a fan buzzed in the window. "Your dad was like a brother to me," he said, sitting down. "Smartest guy I ever met. Everyone else fixed engines. He built them. That Solis thing he was working on? It was real. I saw it turn on with my own eyes. Ran for 3 hours without any wires or plugs. Silent. No heat, no smoke. Just clean power." Lena sat forward. "What happened to it?" Reggie sighed. "Investors came sniffing around. Wanted to lock it down. Preston Vale said we'd all be rich. Your dad said it wasn't about money. He wanted to give it to the world. Said the poor needed it more than the rich. They laughed at him. Then he said he'd go to the press. That's when everything changed." Reggie's voice got quieter. "And then, the fire happened." "The night before it happened," Reggie continued, "Javier told me he made copies of all the files. Blueprints, videos, data, everything. He said if anything happened to him, someone needed to know the truth." Lena's heart pounded. "Did he ever tell you where he kept them?" Reggie shook his head. "He just said they were safe. Hidden where no one would look." Derek flipped open his notebook. "You said Vale came around more often before the fire?" Reggie nodded. He was nervous. Kept talking about needing more control. Said your dad was being too idealistic. That's the word he used. When Javier told him he was going public, they had a shouting match in the back office. I still remember the sound of the toolbox hitting the floor. Lena could almost picture it. Her dad, passionate and stubborn, standing up for what he believed in. "And the next day, the lab was gone," she whispered. Reggie nodded slowly. They stayed with Reggie for another hour. He gave them a small black notebook filled with old notes and sketches her dad used to scribble during breaks. Most of it made no sense to Lena, but Derek's eyes lit up. "These equations match some of the designs we've seen," he said. "It proves he was building something completely new." Lena flipped to the back and saw a short sentence written in Spanish, "La verdad vive en las sombras." She translated it softly. "The truth lives in the shadows." Reggie watched her carefully. "Your dad knew he was in danger, but he didn't stop. He said the truth was always bigger than fear." As they left the garage, Lena turned to Reggie. "Do you think Vale knew the fire would happen?" Reggie hesitated, then said, "I don't think Vale started it, but I think he didn't try to stop it." That answer stayed with her the rest of the day. Back in Derek's apartment, they added the new pieces to the board. The timeline was growing clearer now. Nova West had been working on clean energy. Her dad had built a working prototype. Vale wanted to turn it into profit. Javier wanted to give it away. That caused a split. When Javier threatened to expose everything, someone made sure he disappeared. Lena stared at the timeline. "They called it an accident," she said. "But it was planned. The alarms, the sprinklers, the missing files, all of it." Derek added a pin next to Reggie's name and scribbled witness beside it. Lena took out the black notebook and stared at the line in the back again. "The truth lives in the shadows." "Then we go into the shadows," she said. "That's where we'll find the rest." Derek nodded. "We'll need to be careful. If someone buried this once, they'll try to bury it again." Lena's eyes hardened. Let them try. That night, Lena sat on her bedroom floor surrounded by papers. Her mother peeked in and sat down beside her. "You look just like him," Carmen said softly. Lena smiled a little. "Did he ever talk to you about Solis?" Her mom nodded slowly. "Only once. He said it could change the world. But not everyone wanted the world to change. She picked up one of the blueprints. He used to draw these at the kitchen table. Said they were for a better tomorrow. I didn't understand back then. I just knew he believed in it with all his heart. Lena leaned against her mother's shoulder. I believe in him now too. Even if the world forgot his name, I won't. Her mom held her close. He never stopped loving you. That's why he kept going, even when it was dangerous. He believed you'd finish what he started. Lena closed her eyes. And I will. I promise. The next morning, Lena and Derek printed everything they had so far. Notes, diagrams, emails, photos, even the fire report from George. We need more than a theory, Derek said. We need hard evidence. Something no one can deny. Lena agreed. We find out where those original Solis files were hidden. My dad wouldn't have just left them lying around. Derek pulled out a list of old addresses linked to Nova West's name. One of them was a rented storage unit in Brooklyn. Lena pointed at it. That's our next stop. But before they left, Lena looked at the timeline one more time. Her father's face stared back at her from the center of the board. He had tried to tell the truth. The world had tried to silence him. But now, she was the one chasing the truth. She reached for her coat and whispered, "Hang on, Dad. I'm almost there." The sun was still low when Lena and Derek arrived at the storage facility. It sat just off a quiet road in Brooklyn, tucked between a row of repair shops and a grocery warehouse. The building was old, its blue paint peeling, and a small buzzing light hung above the main entrance. Derek handed the clerk a printed record of the rental agreement from 22 years ago, tied to a shell company connected to Nova West. The old man behind the desk didn't ask questions. He just checked the number, handed over a key, and pointed down the row. Unit 14B. The hallway smelled like dust and engine oil. Lena's hands shook as she unlocked the unit and pushed open the metal door. Inside, it was dark and cramped. Stacks of boxes lined the walls. On top of one, under a gray tarp, sat a locked briefcase with a sticker that read "Property of Javier Morales." Lena's breath caught. We found it. Back at Derek's apartment, Lena sat at the small kitchen table while Derek carefully opened the case. Inside were printed documents, old hard drives, and a small black USB stick labeled Solis Final, verified. Derek looked amazed. "This is it," he whispered. "The final prototype design. The one they tried to destroy." Lena picked up the USB, her hands trembling. "My dad saved everything," she said quietly. Even after they tried to erase him, he didn't give up. Derek connected one of the hard drives to his laptop, scanning the folders. There are emails, meeting recordings, energy test logs. This is more than enough to expose everything. Preston, the investors, the sabotage, all of it. As they dug through the data, a message alert popped up on Lena's phone. It was from a number she didn't recognize. No name, just one line, Track 27. East Terminal. Midnight. Come alone. Lena stared at the screen. I think it's him." Derek leaned over. "You think your father sent that?" Lena nodded slowly. "Track 27 is part of an old train yard in East Harlem. My dad used to take me there when I was little. We'd feed pigeons and watch the trains go by. He always said it was a secret place, just for us." Derek frowned. "It could be a trap." "Or it could be my dad," Lena said. Her heart raced. She knew it was risky, but the message felt too personal to ignore. Derek hesitated, then said, "I'll follow at a distance. You'll go alone, but I'll be nearby in case anything goes wrong." Lena agreed. She copied the Solis files onto a second USB and tucked it in her coat. That night, she dressed in black and took the train across town. Her hands were cold, her thoughts racing. When she stepped onto the empty platform near Track 27, her past was waiting in the shadows. The air was cold and still. A broken clock ticked above the platform, stuck at 12:03. Weeds pushed through the cracks in the concrete, and the only sound was the soft hum of the city far in the distance. Lena waited near the rusty sign marked 27. For a while, no one came. Then, from behind a pillar, a figure stepped forward. Slowly, cautiously. He wore a dark coat and hood. His limp was noticeable, and his steps were uneven. He stopped a few feet away and pulled down his hood. His face was older, marked with scars, and his hair had gone mostly gray. But Lena knew those eyes. They were her father's. "Dad," she whispered, her voice trembling. He nodded. "Lena." Tears filled her eyes. She couldn't move. He took a shaky breath and stepped closer. "I never stopped thinking about you," he said. "Not for a single day." Lena reached out and hugged him tightly, not wanting to let go. They sat on an old bench under the flickering platform light. Javier Morales looked tired and thin. His hands were rough and burned in places. "I've been living off the grid," he said. "Hospitals wouldn't take me. I had to disappear. If they knew I survived, they would have come after me, and you." Lena wiped her eyes. "But why not tell us you were alive?" Her father looked down. "They watched everything. Preston warned me. After the fire, I barely made it out. A friend helped me vanish. I didn't want them to use you or your mother to find me." Lena shook her head. "All these years. I thought you were gone." Javier's voice cracked. "I hated leaving you, but I had no choice." He pulled a small flash drive from his coat. "This is what they wanted. Solis. The real version. Not the demo, not the files in the storage unit. This one proves it works. It's the truth." Lena held the drive carefully. "We found your briefcase," she said. "We've seen the designs, the videos, the tests. This will help prove everything." Javier nodded. "I've been hiding pieces of it for years, hoping someone would find them. But this is the final piece. Without it, people would always say it was just a theory." He paused, breathing heavily. "I wanted to change the world. I didn't think it would cost so much." Lena looked at him. "It's not over. We can still do something. You're alive. You can speak out." Javier shook his head. "My lungs are damaged. I don't have much time. But you have a voice. You're smart. You're strong. You can finish what I started." His eyes filled with tears. "Promise me, Lena. Promise you won't let them bury the truth again." She nodded, holding his hand. "I promise, Dad. I won't stop. Not until everyone knows who you really were." They sat in silence for a while. Lena watched her father breathe slowly, like each breath was a battle. "You said someone helped you escape. Who was it?" she asked gently. Javier looked out at the empty tracks. "An old friend from Nova West. He risked his life to pull me out. Then helped fake hospital records, move me across the state. I can't say his name. He still has a family." Lena nodded. She didn't press further. "And Vale?" she asked. "Was he part of it?" Javier sighed. "He wasn't the one who started the fire, but he didn't stop it either. He was scared. Scared of losing everything. I begged him to help me. He turned his back. But I don't think he wanted me dead." He coughed again, and Lena reached into her bag for a bottle of water. "I forgave him a long time ago," he said. "But that doesn't mean he shouldn't answer for what happened." It was past 1 a.m. when Javier stood, slowly, using a cane to steady himself. "I can't stay here long," he said. "I move every few weeks. Can't leave a trail." Lena hugged him again. "Will I see you again?" she asked. Her father looked down, then into her eyes. "I don't know," he said softly. "But I'll always be with you. In here." He pointed to her heart. "I'm proud of you, Lena. You've done more in a few weeks than I could in years." Lena wiped her face, nodding. He turned and walked into the shadows, disappearing behind the broken wall near the train yard. A moment later, Derek stepped out from a corner across the tracks. Was it him? He asked. Lena nodded. It was really him. She opened her hand and showed him the new flash drive. And now we have everything we need. Derek looked amazed. Then it's time to make a plan. They returned to Derek's apartment just before sunrise. Lena placed both USB drives on the table. Derek set up a backup system and uploaded copies to a secure server. We'll go through everything. Make a clean copy. Then release it when the time is right, he said. Lena sat on the couch, feeling both full and empty. She had seen her father, touched his hand, heard his voice. But she also knew their time was short. His words echoed in her mind, "I don't have much time." She didn't know how much longer he had. She only knew she had to keep moving. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This one read, "We know what you have." Her heart skipped. She showed it to Derek. He frowned. "They're watching us. We have to act fast." Lena stood, staring at the wall where her father's photo now hung. "Then we don't wait. We show the world everything." Later that morning, Lena wrote a letter to her father. She didn't know if she'd ever get to send it, but she needed to say the things she hadn't last night. She wrote about her childhood, her mom's strength, the questions she always had. She told him she wasn't scared anymore, that she believed in his work, that she would protect his name. She folded the letter and placed it inside the notebook he had once scribbled in. She felt stronger now, not just for herself, but for the man the world tried to forget. She opened Derek's laptop and stared at the Solis files one more time. Blueprints, videos, reports, all proof. Real, powerful proof. The kind people couldn't ignore. She took a deep breath. "It's time," she said. Derek looked at her. "You ready for this?" Lena smiled faintly. "I was born ready." And as the morning light filled the room, she clicked save, the first step to exposing the truth. Lena and Derek sat in front of the laptop, the flash drives open on the screen. Everything was ready. All the blueprints, test videos, email conversations, and records showing how Project Solis had been sabotaged were now backed up in a secure folder. Derek looked at her. "We can release this now if you want. Just hit upload." Lena shook her head. "It's not enough to post it online. People ignore links. They scroll past videos. We need to hit them where they can't look away." She opened the news tab on her phone and showed him the headline, "Vail Tech 30-Year Gala to stream live tomorrow." The anniversary event was being hosted by Preston Vail's team. It would be packed with reporters, shareholders, and live cameras. Lena's voice was steady. "We crash the gala. While he's giving his speech, we show them the truth. Not just the world, we show his world." Derek nodded. "All right, let's go big." The next 24 hours were filled with planning. Derek reached out to an old friend named Maya who worked as a lighting tech for events at city venues. She agreed to get them access to the control room at the gala in exchange for a copy of the Solis files. "If this is as real as you say," she told Derek, "people deserve to know." Lena spent the evening reviewing everything, organizing the footage, labeling folders, and preparing a short highlight video. It showed her father's working Solis prototype, the fire report, Reggie's statement, and Preston's connection to the cover-up. They kept it under 5 minutes. Just enough to shock the room. Just enough to spark questions that couldn't be silenced. That night, Lena barely slept. The memory of hugging her father at the train yard was still fresh in her mind. His words echoed, "I believe in you." She whispered back to the dark, "I won't let you down." The next evening, the gala took place at the Metropolitan Grand Hall, a stunning venue in Midtown Manhattan with gold-trimmed ceilings, white marble floors, and giant chandeliers. Guests in tuxedos and gowns entered under bright lights as photographers snapped photos outside. Lena and Derek arrived early through the back entrance. Maya met them near the freight elevator and handed over security badges. "These will get you into the AV booth," she said. "I'll cover for you if anything goes wrong." Lena wore a black suit and kept her hair pulled back. She looked like one of the staff. Derek carried the laptop, tucked inside a technician's bag. They walked through the service hallway, nerves tight in their stomachs. Every step felt heavier. "We're doing the right thing," Lena whispered, "even if it doesn't feel safe." Derek gave a small nod. Truth usually isn't. They reached the booth on the third floor, overlooking the grand ballroom. The countdown had begun. Below them, hundreds of guests took their seats. Waiters moved through the crowd with trays of drinks. A large stage sat at the front of the room with giant LED screens behind it, flashing the Vailtech logo. A voice over the speakers welcomed everyone. The energy in the room was full of pride and celebration. 30 years of innovation, the voice said. Tonight, we honor the man who built it all. Preston Vale stepped onto the stage in a dark gray suit, smiling like a king. The crowd clapped loudly. Cameras flashed. He raised a glass. "Thank you all for being here," he began. Vailtech was founded with one vision: to power the future. Lena stared at the screen. "Now," she whispered. Derek clicked a button on the laptop. The connection linked directly into the projector system. The logo on the screen flickered. Preston paused, confused. "We've just begun," he started again. But the screen behind him was no longer showing his face. At first, people thought it was a tech glitch. But when the first video played, a shaky recording of Javier Morales in his lab, powering the Solis device, the room went quiet. Preston turned slowly and stared at the screen. His face paled. The video showed the machine lighting up, then cut to a report from George Salas, the retired fireman. Then came Derek's voice, narrating over photos of email threats and investor warnings. Javier Morales, co-founder of Nova West, tried to give the world clean energy. He was silenced. The last image was of Preston shaking hands with Javier, taken from the portrait in his office. A line of text appeared, "What are they hiding?" The room exploded with noise. Gasps. Shouts. Reporters rushed to record. Some guests stood, others whispered furiously. Preston tried to speak into the microphone, but the sound was off. He slammed it down and stepped away. For the first time in years, he looked afraid. Security rushed toward the AV booth. Derek quickly disconnected the laptop and tucked it back in the bag. Maya met them at the back exit. "That was insane," she whispered. "Go now. They'll be looking for you." Lena nodded. They ran down the back stairwell, slipping into the alley behind the hall. Crowds were already gathering outside, phones buzzing with news alerts. Lena checked hers. The clip was already trending. Headlines popped up, "Explosive reveal at Vailtech Gala." Who is Javier Morales? Clean energy cover-up. They didn't stop running until they were 2 blocks away. They ducked into a diner and sat in a corner booth. Both of them breathing hard, sweaty and wide-eyed. "We did it," Lena said. "We actually did it." Derek pulled out his phone and refreshed the video page. 500,000 views in 15 minutes, he said. "It's out there now. They can't take it back." Lena smiled faintly. "Let them try." Across town, in his private office, Preston Vale watched the broadcast replay on his screen. His face was tight with anger. His assistant hovered near the door. "Should I call the lawyers?" he asked. Preston didn't answer. He was staring at the final shot, the photo of him and Javier shaking hands. For years, he had buried that memory. Now it was everywhere. "Find out who helped them," he said quietly. "Start with our former staff." The assistant nodded and left. Alone, Preston walked over to his fireplace and looked up at the photo still hanging on his wall. He didn't take it down. He just stared at it, lost in thought. Meanwhile, Lena and Derek sat quietly in the diner, sipping cold coffee. "This is only the beginning," Derek said. "They'll try to spin it, call it fake, maybe even go after us." Lena looked outside at the flashing headlines on passing taxis. "Good," she said. "Let them come." By the next morning, The story had reached national news. Talk shows debated the video. Experts argued whether the Solis machine was real. Some called it a hoax, others demanded an investigation. Vailteca's stock dropped nearly 20% before noon. Lena and Derek watched from Derek's apartment, answering messages from journalists and tech researchers. Some people thanked them. Others warned them to be careful. One email stood out, from a congresswoman requesting a private meeting. "She wants to help," Derek said. "She's on the Energy Committee." Lena nodded. "We'll need powerful allies. Preston still has money and friends." But the most surprising call came from Preston's office. His assistant left a voicemail. "Mr. Vale requests a private meeting. Just you, Miss Morales. No press. No cameras." Derek played it twice, then looked at Lena. "What do you think he wants?" Lena stared at the screen. "I think he knows it's over. But I want to hear him say it." That evening, Lena walked alone into the Park Avenue Grand Hotel. Everything looked the same. The polished floors, the fancy lobby, the crystal lights. But it felt different now. People looked at her differently. A few even whispered as she passed. She took the elevator to the top floor. When the doors opened, Preston was already standing by the window, facing the skyline. He turned slowly. "Thank you for coming," he said. Lena didn't smile. She stepped inside and sat across from him. "You lied to the world," she said. "You let them think my father was nobody." Preston sighed. "I didn't know he survived. If I had, I don't know what I would have done." "You could have told the truth," Lena said. "He was your friend." Preston looked tired. "I lost my way," he said. "I chose business over people. And I've regretted it every day." Lena didn't answer. She just listened. She wanted to hear every word. Preston walked over to a small cabinet and pulled out a thick folder. "These are the remaining patents. I never filed them. They're yours now. And this," he held out a signed letter, "transfers half of my foundation's funds to the Morales Trust. Use it to finish what your father started." Lena took the folder, but her face didn't soften. "Money can't fix what you did," she said. "But the truth might." Preston nodded. "I know." He didn't beg for forgiveness. He didn't cry. He just sat down, silent and still. Lena stood to leave. "This isn't the end," she said. "People are finally asking questions. And I have answers." She walked to the door. Before she stepped out, Preston said softly, "He would have been proud of you." Lena paused, then left without another word. Outside, the air felt cooler, cleaner. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "I'm not done yet, Dad. We're just getting started." The morning after Lena left Preston's office, headlines flooded every news station. The video from the gala had been played again and again. Now, the world was watching. "Corporate giant under fire," one headline read. "Vailteca's billionaire CEO faces whistleblower scandal." Another news outlet posted a side-by-side photo of Preston and Javier Morales with the words, "Forgotten genius?" Lena sat at the kitchen table, flipping between channels while her mom stirred oatmeal on the stove. It felt like their small Queens apartment had suddenly become the center of the universe. Her mom sat across from her, tears quietly streaming down her face. "I kept waiting for someone to remember him," Carmen whispered. "And now they do." Lena held her mother's hand. "He didn't die in vain, Mom. He tried to save the world. And now, everyone will know what he built." Carmen smiled through her tears. "You made sure of that. He would be so proud of you." That same day, the government officially opened an investigation into Vailtec. Lena was called to give a statement at a public hearing held at a courthouse in Lower Manhattan. She sat before a panel of senators and officials, with cameras pointed at her from every angle. Her voice didn't shake. "My name is Lena Morales," she began, "and my father was Javier Morales. 22 years ago, he created a clean energy device called Solis. Instead of being celebrated, he was silenced." She explained the fire, the missing files, the emails, and Preston's quiet cooperation with the investors who feared losing control. She didn't cry. She didn't get angry. She just told the truth. When she finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then someone started clapping. The others followed. One senator leaned forward. "Miss Morales, we believe you. And we intend to act." As she walked out of the courthouse, flashes from cameras lit up the steps like fireworks. Preston Vale, meanwhile, stayed out of sight. His lawyers released a statement saying he was cooperating fully and regrets any decisions that may have led to harm. But the world wasn't buying it. Stock in Vale Tech dropped another 15%. Protesters gathered outside the company's headquarters holding signs that read, "Truth over profit," and "Solis belongs to the people." Lena watched the footage from Derek's apartment. "It's happening," she said quietly. "Everything's changing." Derek nodded, though his face remained serious. "But it's not over yet." Vale wasn't acting alone. And the ones who really pulled the strings, they're still out there. He opened his laptop and pulled up an old investor list from Nova West's early days. Some names were redacted. Others were shell companies. "We need to figure out who they were," he said. "They're the ones who killed your father's dream. Maybe even tried to kill him." Lena leaned in. "Then let's find them before they find us." Later that night, Lena and her mom sat together on the couch in silence. Carmen held an old photo album on her lap. She turned the pages slowly, stopping at a picture of Javier holding baby Lena in his arms, both of them smiling. "I kept this hidden," she said softly. "Not because I wanted to forget him, but because remembering him hurt too much." Lena took the photo in her hands. "Now we can remember him together." Carmen smiled. "Do you know what his favorite song was?" Lena shook her head. Carmen got up and went to the old radio in the corner. She played a soft Spanish love song that filled the room with warmth. "He used to sing this while fixing things around the house," she said. Lena closed her eyes and let the song play, picturing her father at the kitchen table, humming while scribbling designs in his notebook. For the first time, remembering didn't hurt, it healed. But peace didn't last long. The next morning, Lena found a note slipped under the apartment door. No name, no signature, just a message, "Stop digging or we'll finish what we started." Her stomach twisted. She handed it to Derek, who scanned it carefully. "This is serious," he said. "These people don't bluff." Lena sat down, thinking hard. "Then we're getting close. They're scared." Derek made copies of the note and filed a police report, but they both knew that wouldn't stop whoever was behind it. That same day, someone tried to break into the storage unit where the backup Solis files were kept. The lock had been smashed, but nothing was taken. Lena's heart raced. "They're trying to erase it again," she said. "Just like before." Derek nodded. "Only this time, they'll have to go through us." They moved the files to a safer location, an encrypted server shared with 3 trusted journalists who agreed to protect it with their lives. As public pressure grew, new allies stepped forward. A group of scientists published a paper confirming the Solis project's potential. A university offered to help rebuild the prototype with Lena's permission. And the congresswoman who had reached out earlier invited Lena to speak at a national energy conference. "You've become the voice for something much bigger than one invention," she said. "You represent what the future could be." Lena accepted the invitation but kept her focus sharp. She still hadn't heard from her father again. Every night she checked her phone, hoping for another message. Nothing came, but she held on to hope. "He's still out there," she whispered one evening, standing on the rooftop with Derek. Watching. Waiting. Derek looked over the city, and probably proud. Lena smiled. "We're not done yet." He nodded. "Not even close." Below them, traffic moved like rivers of light. Above them, stars blinked silently, like reminders that some things never disappear, no matter how hard others try. The pressure finally reached Vale Tech's board of directors. In a public statement, they announced Preston Vale was stepping down effective immediately. That same day, Preston's face appeared in a courtroom for the first time. Cameras captured every step as he entered in a navy suit, no tie, his face heavy with shame. Lena watched from the back row. He didn't look her way, but she knew he felt her presence. When the judge asked for his plea, he said only, "Guilty." A quiet gasp passed through the room. He was being charged with obstruction, destruction of evidence, and conspiracy to suppress public innovation. He didn't fight it. Lena left the courtroom quietly after the hearing. Reporters rushed toward her, but she said nothing. She didn't need to. The world had already heard her speak. Now, it was Preston's turn to answer. For once, he had no press team, no security, no lawyers spinning his story. Just silence, and justice catching up. At home that night, Carmen made dinner for the first time in weeks. Lena and Derek joined her at the small kitchen table. They laughed. They ate. For a moment, things felt normal again. The TV was on low in the background, showing a segment titled "The Girl Who Changed Energy." Lena blushed but smiled. "They're exaggerating," she said. "Dad did the hard part." Carmen squeezed her hand. "But you finished it." After dinner, Derek helped Carmen wash dishes while Lena sat in her father's old chair, flipping through his notebook. She found a new page she hadn't seen before, a drawing of a tiny home lit by a single glowing light, powered by Solis. Underneath, her father had written, "It starts with one home, then one street, then the world." Lena traced the words with her finger. Her father had dreamed big, but always thought about people first. She whispered, "We'll light up the world, Dad. Just like you wanted." Days passed, then weeks. More stories came out, about Nova West, about other scientists who'd been silenced, about companies that paid to keep clean energy hidden. The world was waking up. People protested, others donated to causes supporting open-source technology. Lena and Derek worked with engineers and teachers to create a simple Solis model that students could build in classrooms. "Start young," Lena said at one school event. "Teach them truth, not just power." Her words stuck. She became a guest speaker, a mentor, and an unlikely face for energy justice. But danger still lingered. Not everyone was happy. One evening, Derek found a small tracker hidden under their shared car. It was new, expensive, professional. He showed Lena. "We're still targets," he said. Lena stared at it. "Let them watch. I'm not hiding." They reported it, of course, but it reminded them, exposing truth had a cost. And the real fight wasn't just about technology. It was about who controlled the future. One night, after finishing a long interview, Lena stood alone on the apartment balcony. The wind brushed against her face, and she looked out at the skyline glowing in the distance. Behind her, Derek was asleep on the couch, papers scattered across the floor. Her mom had gone to bed early, tired but peaceful. Everything was changing, but not fast enough. Somewhere out there, powerful people were still trying to stay in the shadows. But now she had a light, Solis, and a mission that felt bigger than revenge. It was about legacy. About justice. About finally giving her father the place he deserved in history. She held the last photo she had of him, smiled, and whispered, "I'm not afraid anymore." The wind carried her voice softly into the night. Lena Morales, the girl who found her father in a photo, who uncovered the truth, was no longer just a bartender. She was a storm. It had been 3 months since the gala, but Lena still woke up some mornings feeling like it had only just happened. So much had changed so quickly. Vailtech had been split up, investigations were still ongoing, and clean energy had become the biggest conversation in the country. But the biggest change wasn't in the world, it was in Lena. She was no longer just a bartender, or the girl who asked a question about a photo. She was someone who carried a name that mattered. Javier Morales wasn't just her father now, he was a symbol. That morning, she stood at the mirror, fixing her hair before an important speech. A local school had invited her to speak to their science class. At first, she'd felt nervous. But now she smiled. These were the same kinds of kids her dad once said he wanted to help. "Start with one," he had said. then help them all. The school was in the Bronx, a small public middle school that had seen better days. But the halls were clean, and the kids were bright-eyed. Lena walked through the front doors with Derek by her side and a box of Solis model kits under her arm. They were greeted by the principal, Mrs. Alvarez, who smiled warmly. "They're so excited," she said. "They've been following your story like a superhero movie." Lena laughed. "I don't wear a cape," she said, "but I do bring science." In the classroom, about 30 students waited quietly, staring with wide eyes as she walked in. One girl raised her hand. "Are you really the daughter of Javier Morales?" Lena nodded, her voice soft but steady. "Yes. And I'm proud of it." She spoke for 20 minutes, about her father's dream, the truth they uncovered, and how every great idea starts small. "Your ideas matter," she told them, "even if no one believes them yet." After her talk, she passed out the model kits. Each one came with a tiny replica of the Solis system, simple, safe, and powered by a small solar cell. The students took them carefully, as if holding something magical. "If my dad were here," Lena said, "he'd be sitting right in this room. He believed in young minds more than anything." One boy looked up. "Is it true he almost died trying to protect it?" Lena nodded. "He didn't almost die, he did disappear for 20 years. But he survived. He just didn't want the world to know until it was ready." The classroom was silent for a moment. Then the kids clapped, some of them even cheering. Mrs. Alvarez wiped away a tear. "They'll never forget this," she whispered to Lena. As she walked out of the school, sunlight broke through the clouds. It felt like something had opened, like the world was finally ready to change. Later that afternoon, Lena and Derek boarded a train heading north. It wasn't part of any public event. There were no cameras or reporters. Just them. Derek held an old address scribbled in her dad's handwriting, the last known place Javier had stayed before disappearing again. "He trusted you," Derek said, "even when he couldn't stay." Lena looked out the window. "He always said he didn't have much time. I just hope we're not too late." The train rolled past trees dressed in autumn colors, and after 2 hours, they arrived in a quiet town near the Catskill Mountains. The air smelled of pine and wood smoke. They followed a dirt path behind a small diner until they reached a hidden cabin surrounded by trees. It looked abandoned, but something about it felt alive. Lena stepped forward, pushed open the creaky door, and walked inside. Dust floated in the air, and on the table lay a folded letter with her name on it. Lena picked up the letter, her hands shaking. She unfolded the paper slowly and began to read. "If you're reading this, I'm probably already gone. But not in the way you think. I've always been with you, Lena. I watched from far away. I stayed hidden to protect you, but I never stopped loving you." Her breath caught. Derek stood beside her, silent. The letter continued. "This cabin was the only place I could think clearly. I finished my final notes here. If you choose to continue Solis, use them. But more importantly, remember what I always said, it's not about the tech. It's about the people." Tears streamed down Lena's face. She sat at the old wooden table, the letter resting beside a worn notebook, the last one her father ever filled. She flipped it open. Inside were drawings, ideas, and a simple phrase on the last page, "Light lives where love leads." She whispered, "I miss you, Dad." They stayed in the cabin that night. Derek lit a small fire while Lena read through the notebook. It wasn't just technical notes. Her father had written thoughts, poems, even conversations he imagined having with her. Today she'd be 13, one entry read. "I wonder if she still smiles like her mom." Lena laughed softly and wiped her tears. In another entry, he described a dream where they were walking through the city, powering street lamps with their hands. "He always made science feel like magic," she said. Derek smiled. "That's why it worked. He believed in it like people believe in love." Before going to bed, Lena stood outside and looked at the stars. The same sky her father had looked at every night, alone. Now, it felt like he was still watching. "I'll finish it," she whispered. I'll carry it until it lights every street, every home, every heart. A gentle breeze passed, and she felt a warmth in her chest. The next day, Lena and Derek returned to the city. They moved forward with plans to launch the Morales Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting young inventors and bringing clean energy to low-income neighborhoods. Journalists reached out, asking for more interviews, but Lena chose carefully now. This isn't about fame, she said. It's about following through. They partnered with schools, libraries, and even prisons, sending out free kits and training teachers on how to build and teach the Solis model. Derek took charge of digital tools, creating an app that let people see how their energy could come from light. One night, Lena visited a shelter that had installed the first full-size Solis panel. The lights were brighter than she expected. The kids inside were reading books, laughing, and playing under safe, warm light. A volunteer hugged her and whispered, "You changed everything." Lena smiled gently. "No," she said. "My dad did. I just helped the world listen." Months passed. Winter melted into spring, and Solis became more than a story. It became a movement. Students all over the country posted their own versions of the design. Some improved it. Some made it smaller. Lena kept all the pictures in a scrapbook. "Look at this one," she told Derek one night. A 10-year-old in Detroit used a soda can to make his own battery. My dad would have loved this. The Morales Foundation received thousands of letters from kids, families, even scientists who had once stayed silent. They all said the same thing: "Thank you for reminding us that truth matters." One day, while checking the Foundation's email, Lena saw a message with no sender name. It only said, "Still proud of you. Keep going." She stared at it for a long time, heart racing. She didn't know where he was, or if he was still alive, but she knew one thing. Her father was watching. 1 year later, Lena stood on the same rooftop where it had all started, the Ivory Lounge, 45 floors above the city. It had been renovated, brighter and busier now. She had been invited to speak at a fundraiser held there, hosted by a group of energy leaders who had once laughed at the idea of Solis. Now, they shook her hand and asked questions. "Is there more coming?" one asked. Lena smiled. "There's always more. You just have to be willing to believe in it before it exists." After the event, she slipped away to the hallway outside the VIP suite. It looked almost the same velvet carpet, same soft lights. She peeked inside Vale's old office, now empty. The portrait was gone. In its place hung a new one, Javier Morales, smiling with his arms crossed, standing beside a glowing Solis prototype. She reached up and touched the frame. "Full circle," she whispered, tears rising. That night, Lena wrote a final letter. It wasn't for the press. It wasn't for history. It was for her father. She placed it inside the original Solis notebook and sealed it. The letter said, "We did it. They remember you now. They believe in what you built. And I'll never stop. Every school I visit, every light we power, every child who dreams, that's you. That's us." She placed the notebook on a shelf in the Morales Foundation's office, under a plaque that read, "For those who shine in silence." As she walked outside into the bright city night, she looked up at the skyline. Lights sparkled in every direction, but now they meant something different. They weren't just buildings anymore. They were beacons of what was possible when one person refused to give up. Javier Morales had lit the spark. Lena had carried the flame. And together, even from different worlds, they had brought the light back home.